Welcome to Mountain Slider Garage. We're here today with our Ski-Doo Factory Turbo, and we're going to talk today about checking and adjusting your track tension as well as checking and adjusting your track alignment. Now to do that, we're going to go to the owner's manual for the specs on track tension. So what we want to do, we want to pull down on our track with a certain amount of pounds of force, and we want to measure from the rail, from the bottom of the Hyfax to the top of the track. And those measurements are, we want that gap to be 3.2 centimeters, about 1.25 inches while we're pulling with 13 to 19 pounds of force. So that kind of shows us where we want to be with our track tension. So if we go back to our snowmobile here, we're going to show you how to do that. First of all, in order to adjust the track, we need to loosen the factory axle nut, which is right here. That's a locking nut. We need to loosen that. And then to adjust the track forward and back, we have our track adjustment screws here. These screw through this black aluminum thing that goes through. On the inside of this, there's a nylon lock nut that keeps this screw from backing out once we've adjusted it. And it goes all the way through and it pushes on your axle to allow your axle to move forward and back in this slot. So first of all, we're going to get our 15 millimeter. And there's a 15 millimeter on both sides of this. We just want to loosen there. Next thing we want to do is we're going to get our fish scale here, put it into pounds, and they say to adjust this about halfway between the front of your track and the back, which is usually about where this rubber stopper is here. We're going to hook that on our track, and then we're going to pull down with, we've got 16 pounds of force, 17, so we're about 17, and we're about 1.5 inches, almost 1.75 inches, so we're a little bit too loose. So to tighten that, we're going to come back up here. We're going to come back up here to our adjustment screws. We're going to hook our ratchet onto those with a 10 millimeter. We're going to turn each of those about 5 quarter turns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we want to adjust both sides the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the 5 quarter turns on both sides. That pushes this wheel back, and that should tighten up our track enough to where it's in spec. So we're going to come back down here, pull down on the track again, 16, 17 pounds. We're right at 1.25 inches at 17.5 pounds, right where the spec says we should be. So we're going to take our scale off. Next thing we want to do, we want to make sure our track is centered in the rails from left to right. It's right in the center. If it's not right in the center, it can cause some excessive wear and can maybe cause you some problems as you're riding this year. So what we want to do, we have our T-square here, and then what I'm going to do is move the T-square. We're going to measure from the edge of the rail to the edge of the track. On this side, we've got about 9 centimeters on that side, and we measure the same from the edge of the rail to the edge of the track. On this side, we've got about 8 centimeters. So the track is actually more towards this side than that side. So we want to push it from this, where I'm at on this side, over to that side to take up some of the slop in the track over here. So we want to move it that way. To move it that way, we want to tighten this side, or we can loosen that side. Since we're already about where we want to be on our track adjustment, we're going to tighten this one about 4 half turns. That should move the track from this side over to that side about as much as we want it. Now we want to be able to turn the track about 6 revolutions just to let this set back in the alignment where we adjusted it to, and then we'll check it again and see where we're at. Since we're up on a track stand, if our track stand fails, the sled slips off or something, we're spinning the track at 40 miles an hour, your sled's going to go flying into the wall or the car or whatever's in front of it. So you really don't have to spin it very fast. Like I said, 6 to 12 revolutions is going to probably put it back in alignment where you want it. So we're going to go ahead and start it up. Okay, now we're going to want to measure this again. We're going to measure from the edge of the rail to the edge of the track again. And we're about 8.5 centimeters, so that gives us we moved a little bit, about 0.5 centimeter, about 8.5 centimeters on this side. So that gives us an idea that our track's about right in the center where it needs to be. Now, since we did adjust one of these adjustment screws, we're going to go back and we're going to check our tension one more time before we tighten this thing up and call it a day on this thing. So we're going to hook our scale back up here one more time. Pull down on this track. And that did tighten it up a little bit. We're at about just about an inch and an eighth at 19 pounds. A little bit tighter than spec, but since this is an almost new machine, this track's going to loosen up quite a bit in the next couple of rides. So I'm going to leave it on a little bit on the tight side so we can, because I know as this track stretches, and new tracks are going to stretch quite a bit as you ride them. So if you have a new sled, you want to make sure you check your track tension every once in a while for the first few hundred miles, just see where it's at, because your track is really going to loosen up over the first 500 miles. So the last thing we want to do, since we're done with this, we want to tighten up our axle again, and then we'll be done. So got that tightened up. So now we understand a little bit more how our snowmobile works, what we can do to maintain it. I hope this video was helpful, and I hope you join us again for Mountain Sledder Garage.